Welcome to Live Consciously with Nicole. I'm your host, Nicole Wenzel, and I am recording this episode from beautiful Florence, Italy, where I recently moved. And I'm just so excited today to catch you up on what's been going on with me for the past few months, but really the past year, basically, of what's been going on in my life that led to this big move. I have to say in advance that I am calling in from the backyard of my new home, and so there are a lot of dogs here and other background noises that might pop up. I'm just choosing to embrace it because I love dogs, and if my dog barks or if one of the other dogs in the villa where I'm living bark, I'm just going to embrace that. And also I find, the birds chirping to be kind of peaceful and tranquil and relaxing. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that I'm totally aware there's going to be some background noises, but I am also recording video for this episode, and I just feel like this is the place with the best lighting. So I'm going to run with it. Okay, so I don't even know where to start. I guess I can share with you kind of a bit of what led me here to Italy. I was last year sort of in this space where I was waking up every morning. I lived in Southern California. I was waking up every morning, I was walking to the ocean, and I was doing Pilates and then coming home, and I was writing from when I got home until when I fell asleep. And I was doing that every day, and I got a really nice draft going of a book, which I also am developing a screenplay for. And I just kind of got to the point where I needed a change of scenery. And I imagine there's probably some other creatives, maybe some other writers who follow me, and I want to kind of share about my creative process because I was in a space where I just needed a change of scenery. And I had thought about, do I want to move somewhere new? I don't know. I had been spending a lot of time in Europe, like whenever I could, and I found that to be always lovely, but I just didn't even know where in Europe I would move if I moved to Europe. I didn't have any kind of plan in place for that. And so I was just sort of relying on traveling, but traveling for large chunks of time whenever I could. So I was at a place where it was right before my 35th birthday, or no, my 36th birthday. I'm getting older. Oh my gosh, I have another one coming up soon too. So it was right before my 36th birthday. And I was, working on this writing project, single, just totally free. And I decided to just love myself enough to take myself on a solo trip to Italy. So I decided that rather than sort of overplan everything and be stressed out when, there were changes in the plans or whatever, I decided the only thing I was going to plan out was that I was going to book a plane ticket to Verona, Italy, and one hotel in Verona when I landed. And then from there, I was just going to stay for a couple of weeks and just see where my own intuition led me and where my own interests, my own desires, my own just excitement, where that led me. Because I believe that we do have this, I call it like a greater force of love that we can lean on, and it leads us through inspiration, is my personal belief. So if we're feeling excited and inspired about something, a lot of times if we act on that, that's what leads to synchronicity or insights or just incredible experiences we wouldn't have had otherwise. And it can really reveal our path to us. And there's something that happened in modern society where people stopped listening to that. And I don't know if it's always been like this. Maybe it's been like since the beginning of mankind. People haven't, always necessarily followed that, or societal messaging or constraints or other things, other systems in place might have kind of made some people feel like they can't just, follow that. But I've actually found following my inspiration, not over planning things, because then that's like my ego sometimes trying to over control everything. I mean, when you need to plan something, plan it, but I'm talking about when you don't need to, when it's not like, a work thing or, something that really requires extensive planning and it's like a vacation. It's like you don't need to necessarily over plan everything, right? But sometimes we can do that and then we end up not even like enjoying the vacation, at least in my experience. So I was like, you know what? As a gift to myself for my 36th birthday, I'm just going to go to Italy and kind of bounce around and write in cute places and stay in cute hotels that I feel inspired by and go wherever I think is interesting and see some good art and let the universe surprise me, basically. So I started off in Verona, and Verona, I would say, is probably most famous for being the setting of Romeo and Juliet. And of course, my birthday is in February, so it's right around Valentine's Day. And I was actually in Verona on Valentine's Day, which is obviously like a romantic thing. And I was in this headspace where I had been single for a couple years, and I was like, yes, I want to romance myself. I want to explore Verona on my own. I want to do all the things. So you can actually go to Juliet's balcony. There's like an actual balcony, and you can write her a letter. And so, it's funny and it's fun and it's silly, and you're also supposed to like touch her. There's a statue, you're supposed to touch her boob on the statue, and it brings you good luck. So I did all those things, and I wrote her a letter, and it was really more for me. I do think there are people who are supposedly write you back. I personally never got a letter back, but I've heard it can take like a really long time. So I wrote this letter to Juliet, and I basically just kind of took everything I'd been through that had hurt me with my experiences with men, with dating, just all the disappointment. I put that into the letter, and I also put, and I think most importantly, like any lingering attachments or areas where I felt like I hadn't gotten full closure, or there was a little what if. I put all of that into this letter to Juliet. And then I went to the Basilica di San Zeno on Valentine's Day. And I was so I made this huge ritual of it. I dressed in all black. I got myself a single pink rose, which is my favorite kind of flower. And I walked down the aisle of this church, it's called the church where Romeo and Juliet got married, just because of its geographical location, I guess. And I walked into this church, and I sat in the pews, and I said a prayer. And my prayer was to rise above the modern dating world, which had never resonated with me, and to open my heart to call in a holy and sacred kind of love. That was my prayer. And to fully release the past. And I sat in the pews and I prayed, and I probably cried a little bit, and that was that. And I left Verona, and I listened to my instinct, which was to go to Venice. So I caught the train to Venice. It's just an incredible place. There's really nowhere else like it on earth that I can think of personally. It really is this city of water, and it's so interesting. I just love that you kind of ride boats to get everywhere, and the people there are just kind of interesting, and there were a lot of other writers out there and other artists who were just living there for a while kind of working on their next project. And I was in the city working on my next project, my screenplay, my book I was writing. And so I was just so inspired by that experience, but I felt like in my heart, okay, I want to be here for a couple days in Venice. I have a lot of time left on my trip. I think I had a week and a half, and I was like, where to? And my heart told me, go to Florence. And then, random people I was meeting were saying, you should really go to Florence. So I took the train to Florence, which is actually kind of a longer train ride. I had, the year before I had gone to Rome and Positano, where I was working on a film, and So I had already kind of experienced those places, and I was like, okay, I have never been to Florence. I really want to go. And I immediately was just so happy I made that decision when I got to Florence. It was my first time going there, and I stayed at this really cute hotel. It's called the Hotel Mona Lisa. And it just had this really cool secret garden area where I could literally just lay there and write, and then go to the galleries and see all of Michelangelo's work and all of this incredible Renaissance work. And I think one thing that just stood out to me so much was the way there were so many paintings on the ceilings. So you'd walk into an art gallery and just be overwhelmed with beauty and color and stimulation. And my favorite museum I walked into is Palazzo Vecchio. Just this huge room in the middle of the museum. And you look up and there's paintings on the ceiling, there's paintings on all the walls, like gigantic paintings. And when I walked in there for the first time, I just sort of teared up because I was having this personal awakening of really coming into my own as an artist and accepting that that was my path, to be an artist, to be a writer, to be a creator, to be, to paint, to make films, to make music, to make books, to make anything I can create, and it's really not about, how far that goes, in whatever sense of external validation, but just that was in my own intrinsic way what lit me up. Where it didn't matter what anyone else thought about it, that's what I wanted to do. It was create and be an artist. And coming to terms with my own, purpose and passion. And yeah, like I went to film school and I studied filmmaking, but there was always this subconscious part of me that was like, but you can't really just be an artist. Like, you're going to always have to do something else. And I'm in a place in my life where I'm like, no, I'm an artist. This is what I'm going to do full out. And, who knows where life will take me. Maybe I would, reach a point where I was like, oh, I do need to do something else. But I really don't think so. I feel like this was this awakening for me of like, no, this is who you are. And I guess the reason I hadn't embraced it sooner was really, my subconscious programming as a child, messaging I had gotten from parental, my father was always like, would say art making is this very idle way to spend time, and really made it seem like academia or whatever was like the only path. And whereas my mother is an artist, and so she always inspired me to create, but I never felt like, oh, I could have this as my career or full-time thing. And so anyway, I was like going through all of these internal breakthroughs where I was like, oh, that was just, this like negative messaging of my father or whatever. And then, having just, when I wasn't in a good relationship, having people, also give me negative messaging about my own work or whatever, that is. So there was just like this inner work I was doing, I guess, to put it simply, of really stepping into my own as a mature female artist. And walking into that gallery, into Palazzo Vecchio, I just felt like, God, I don't know, I just started tearing up. I think I felt like the Renaissance was this incredible time, and it really was birthed in Florence, right? And what was so incredible about the Renaissance was that there were all of these artists really being commissioned and paid well for what they were doing. So there was this incredible output of just the most beautiful work. And at least in American society, so often I feel this way, and in other cultures, but I just don't always feel like true art is always at that level, where there are these huge commissions for artists. Of course that exists, but for me it always feels like these inaccessible things. I had my own sort of awakening there in Palazzo Vecchio, and as I was wandering the museum, I just see this group of people, and there's this woman, and she opens one of the paintings to reveal a secret passageway. And I was like, what is going on? And then this group of people walk through the secret passageway, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, I need more information. And the woman's like, oh, we're on a secret passage tour of Palazzo Vecchio. And I immediately was like, I need to go on that tour. I don't always go on like tours when I travel, but I was like, I need to go on that tour. So I went on this tour, a secret passage tour, and it was so cool, like all the secret symbols and the paintings and seeing where, there's all these like hidden rooms and hidden offices and hidden staircases, and it was just so much fun, and probably like one of my favorite moments, on this sort of journey I've had as a single woman, like dating myself, taking myself on dates. That was so fun, and I remember just thinking like, that's my favorite museum ever. Like, I love this place so much. And then I went to go see the Birth of Venus painting by Botticelli in the Uffizi Gallery. And that was just so awe-inspiring. I'm like literally writing a whole book about it because it just really took my breath away. And I think the most profound aspect of that was that standing there in front of the painting, and if you've never seen it, like go Google it, because standing there in front of this painting of Venus, it was just this reflection of my own divine feminine worthiness, without all of like the doingness of the patriarchy. Venus to me really represents the beingness and the divine worthiness that comes from simply existing and having this feminine magnetic power. And I had this just real moment of awakening, I guess, watching this painting and standing there on my own 2 feet as a woman in the world who had really come through the ashes of one of like the worst breakups of my life a couple years prior, where I was finally leaving this abusive relationship where, I had been cheated on, I had been lied to, I had been mistreated and all of this. And really rising up from that and discovering my own intrinsic self-worth that didn't depend on all those external things or other people or whatever, just really discovering that truth about myself, which is also true of you and true of us all. And it's regardless of gender, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us. And so it was just really embracing the feminine side of myself. And so I had this incredible moment. I took myself out to dinner, and then I went to go write in like a little pub cafe near my hotel. And as I was sitting there writing, I was really like, not wanting to talk to anyone. I was just really writing. I was so at peace with myself and with my work and with my calling and with the moment. I was just enjoying being in Florence. And like a group of guys tried to talk to me. I was like, no, I'm not talking to men right now. I'm so focused on my writing. And then sure enough, in that exact moment, someone walks in, and I'm like writing, and I kind of look down and I just see like this really like cute pair of shoes, and I'm like, oh, that guy has like nice style. And then I slowly look up and I'm like, whoa, okay, wait, who is that? And it turns out he thought the same thing about me. He was like, okay, who is that? And we just sort of were like magnets to each other. And he came over to me. We immediately just started talking, and, he got my information, and the next night took me on a date. He asked me to go get pizza with him. And so he took me to this really cute little pizza shop, and I knew that I was love at first sight. I felt like it was love at first sight, Amore Prima Vista, but I really knew I felt strongly about him when we, were ordering at this pizza place, and I was like, well, the whole menu is in Italian, and his passion is cooking and food. And so I was like, well, why don't you just pick something out for me? Because this menu better than me, and you have this passion for food, and I want to see like what you would pick out. And a pizza comes, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna like split this pizza, right? And he said, Nicole, no, that's all for you. I ordered myself a calzone. And really in that moment, I was like, okay, I really like him. Like, it's not just, initial attraction. And it really was, looking back, like love at first sight, Amore Prima Vista. And then he just really immediately made me a priority and was like, I want to see you this night. I have work here, but I want to see you here. And it was so refreshing, just to have someone so like mature, I guess, and like a grown man. And maybe, I had to go all the way to Italy to find someone like that, because I had not found that kind of, manliness, I guess. I don't know, just like someone who is respectful and just really, prioritizes me in that kind of a way, and is just also so kind and good natured and good hearted and has such a strong spiritual center and core. Anyway, long story short, we started dating. I was going back and forth between Florence and California. We also had just this incredible moment where it was my birthday and I had booked a stay in a castle just for myself in Siena, which is like wine country. And that was like, again, this like self-love thing I was doing because I was single. I was by myself in Italy. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this castle and write and get inspired by, the Italian countryside and all of that. What I didn't account for was that it was a bit of a drive from Florence, about, I think, like an hour, hour and a half. And I was like, well, I'll just get a driver, right? And the person handling the reservation was like, I really think you should just like rent a car, because it's not so easy to get a driver out here, and there's not a lot of restaurants. Like, you kind of have to cook. You have to like go to the grocery store. So it's probably a better idea to get a rental car. And that was out of the question to me, like renting a car. I just wasn't that adventurous. I like to think of myself as adventurous, but not that adventurous. So I basically was like, so do you want to like go to this castle? do you drive? Like, do you want to like maybe go to this castle? Like, I don't know. And he was like, yeah, like, let's totally go. Like, I have the day off tomorrow. Let's go. And so we went, and it was so magical, and he cooked for me for my birthday, and he was like, I really want to cook for you. And so he just completely won me over. And then the day after my birthday, I had to go back to California because I had my flight booked. And I have a dog, and she was with her sitter in California, but I don't like to leave her for too long, So it was just really sad. We were both like so emotional, like, wait, like, what do we do? Like, we're kind of in love with each other, right? Like, we're like this, we feel very strongly about each other. Like, what are we going to do? We're both super emotional. And I left and I went back to California, and I was like, well, I'll come back in April. And, I had, this flight booked for April. And then I was like, after I think like a week and a half, I was like, I'm getting on a plane and I'm coming back right now. Like, I can't wait till April. So I've never done anything like that before, ever, for a man. I'm always like, they can come to me. But because of the nature of his work, he worked with children and who are going through difficult situations. And so it's just difficult for him to get time off from that. It's just sort of different, the work life in Italy. So I came back, and that was kind of what really solidified it. And then I had also already booked this trip for April, so then I came back in April. And then we ended up spending the summer together in South Italy, and he showed me like his hometown, and I met his family. And at the end of that trip, he proposed. And then again, he proposed, we have this magical moment, and then I got on a plane and I came back to California, and I was just like, okay, like, this needs to stop. And so at that point, we decided we were going to get married by the end of the year so that I could move out here legally. So then I was back there in October, just handling all the paperwork, because there's so much paperwork. And I promise I'll make some content to support anyone else in this predicament, because, it's just kind of complicated, and it's not easily Googleable, or like you can Google stuff, but all the information isn't correct that you find. So I promise I'll make that kind of content later on. But for now, I'm just going to leave this episode sort of about, how I ended up here. We we're planning our wedding, but we decided to just elope basically because we just needed to kind of get legally married first, and then I could move out here, and then we'll like take our time planning, a bigger wedding. So for now, we were like, okay, let's just basically elope. Like, we'll just invite whoever is local in Florence who's free that day, but it's not going to be this like huge thing. And there was something about that was like, for me, so refreshing and fulfilling, because there was no like big pressure that day. We just really enjoyed it. So we worked with a photographer, took some photos that morning. I did dress up in a white dress. I'll share some photos. And he had like the cutest little suit on, and we got married. And here's the real like beautiful magic of it. We got married at Palazzo Vecchio, which was the museum where I had like fallen in love with Renaissance art just a few months before that. And I had no idea that was where I would get married. I didn't plan that at all. And this is the magic of the universe when you really let go and you let yourself be led and guided, because I didn't plan that at all. And yet I got to get married in my favorite museum in all of Florence, and maybe in all of the world. And that just happened to be, it's a museum, but it's also where they handle a lot of their like civic affairs. So we walk into this room. It's like this red room. The walls are all red, and there's these gorgeous Renaissance paintings. And this little like officiant, he's reading everything in Italian, and I'm working on my Italian, but it's, a little slow coming. But we had a translator there, thankfully. And he, at one point, just starts reading me like this gorgeous Italian poetry. And my favorite poem he read is called Sei Bella. And if you look it up, I'll maybe share it on my blog, but it's just the most beautiful poem. Let me see if I can find it actually, because it's so gorgeous. Ah, I found it. Okay. Here we go. It's called Sei Bella, but I'll read the English version. You are beautiful, and not for that bit of makeup. You are beautiful for how much life has passed through you, for the dreams that you have inside and that I don't know. Beautiful for all the times it was your turn, but on to the next. For the words spent in vain, and for those sought far away. For every tear that fell, and for those hidden at night in the moonlight accomplice. For the smile you try, the attention you don't find, for the emotion you feel and the hope you invent. You're simply beautiful, like a flower picked in a hurry, like an unexpected gift, like a stolen glance or a heartfelt hug. You're beautiful, and it doesn't matter if the world knows. You are truly beautiful, but only for those who know how to look at you. It took my breath away. I was just like, oh my God. Because my journey has been very, difficult, I would say, and I think just the insecurities for me that came with being cheated on, and I made a whole movie about it called Supermodel, you can watch on my channel, but, I had dealt with a lot of insecurities that I had to confront in myself and sort of learn how to see my own beauty, value, worthiness without question, without society's, projections on what it should be, on how I should look, or that I should, get Botox or this or that. Lose how much weight or whatever. Like, I really embraced like self-love and acceptance and shed all of that, or as much as you can in this world we live in, but to the best of my ability. And so there's just something really magical about him reading that poem, and it was so unexpected, that it was just really lovely. So I don't know, I really feel like eloping, at least in Italy, was like the best decision ever, because it just preserved something so raw and real and like true romance, like it was really like old school romance. And I've always been this old school romantic, but there's a great line in the song that's like, but all I've ever had are love songs. Like I've had so many like boyfriends or guys I've dated or whatever, but it was never like this, where it was just this kind of classic love story. So I was really happy I finally was able to receive that at age 36. And yeah, I just want to share that, story with everyone, because if you have been through something hard, or you had a difficult childhood, or insecurities, or men who treated you badly, or exes who treated you badly, or, whatever your gender, whatever gender you're dating, I just want to share my story with the hope it might inspire you or someone you know. And also that life can look different. And, there are times I had felt like fed up with modern society in America. And there are these moments of renewal and rebirth that can happen on planet Earth. And it really has felt like a rebirth when I moved out here. Like, even just, we have a car, but I don't drive it because, again, like, I don't really want to drive in Italy, but also it's a stick shift, so if I do want to drive it, I'm going to have to learn stick shifts. I have been riding a bike again, which I haven't done probably since I was a kid. And I feel almost like, I'm learning this new language. I feel there's this like childlike nature to learning a new language. I feel like I'm a toddler trying to like form a sentence sometimes. Or, riding a bike again. Like, I don't know, it's almost like, to me, it does feel like a rebirth and this whole new chapter. And there are some really hard parts about it. I'm not going to lie to you. And I would love to make a video about that at some point. But there's so many beautiful, magical parts. And I think that most of all, it really, moving out here, getting married, finding that soulmate connection, it was just what was meant to happen in my life, but I had to listen to and trust my own inspiration, because I think when we try to figure it all out from our ego, we can get stuck or just like very disappointed. But when you really lean on that higher force, or you're using things like prayer, or really like energetically getting clear on what you really want, not from your head where you're like, I should want this, but really from like your body wisdom. Like, I was at a point where I was like, I had been dating so much, different guys, different countries, all over the world. And I had gotten to the point where I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to casually date men anymore. I want to call in something holy and sacred. And less than a year later, I'm married. Like, just with someone who has such a strong spiritual center, who prays every single day, who, we have that deep soulful connection. It's not, this like surface level kind of thing. It's not superficial in any way, or, based on these sort of modern constructions of dating or whatever. So, but I had gotten really clear on that. And I also, energetically, I had been feeling like I wouldn't be opposed to living in Europe, but I didn't know where. Like, I didn't know I would actually do it either. But in his situation, it just didn't make any sense for him to come to America. And it made a lot of sense for me to go live in Italy. So that was the decision we made. And it wasn't easy, logistically speaking, to be able to sit here right now, as someone who like officially moved here. Like, even up until this past week, I was dealing with paperwork and stuff like that. So I don't want to sugarcoat, like the reality of things. And also, just like the emotional experience of being in a new country. Like, there's so much I could share about all that. But I do want this video to kind of be like, just, about the magic of life that can happen when you let go of control a little bit. And even like our whole relationship, I remember like the whole time I was like, how's it going to work out? We live in two different countries. And at first I wasn't wanting to move to Italy. I was like, well, maybe I'll just split my time, or maybe he can come here. And ultimately, when I really surrendered it to something greater, it became so clear over time that I was meant to come here. And I'm so glad I did. Like, it's been really cool. So Anyway, I'm going to leave on that note and just say thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and let me know what kind of content you're really interested in, because I feel like I can share a lot about, my transition to Italy and what that's been like, or just being an American now living in Florence. But I also, love sharing mindfulness content. So I imagine going forward, it's going to be kind of a mix of all of that. And I also am always going to be very passionate about speaking about, the film industry and what's going on with all that. And there are some very interesting things going on in the film industry right now that I almost don't want to comment on, but I do have some thoughts on, but I'm going to save that for another episode. So for today, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. I really want to build a strong community here and feel connected to you and serve you in the best way possible. So bye for now, and I will talk to you soon.